let's be real for a moment. In today's world of swipe-right relationships and disposable connections, experiencing something this intense can feel like being struck by lightning while everyone else is talking about light rain. It's disorienting, it's overwhelming, and yes, it can make you feel like you're losing your grip on reality. But here's what's fascinating. The very fact that you're questioning your sanity might actually be one of the most sane responses you could have. Why? Because true twin flame connections are meant to shake us to our core. They're designed to make us question everything we thought we knew about ourselves, about love, and about reality itself. Think about it. We live in a society that's trained us to be logical, practical, and rational in our approach to relationships. Then suddenly, along comes this connection that throws all of that out the window. You're experiencing synchronicities that defy explanation. You're feeling emotions that seem too big for your body to contain. You might even be having experiences that don't fit into your previous understanding of how relationships should work. Of course, you're questioning your sanity. How could you not? But here's where things get interesting and why I felt compelled to say that. The twin flame journey isn't actually about the other person at all. It's about you. It's about your growth, your awakening, and your expansion into a fuller version of yourself. Whether this particular person is your twin flame or not might not even be the most important question to ask. Well, let's going to dive deep into this topic. We'll explore the signs and symptoms of true twin flame connections. But more importantly, we'll look at how to maintain your sanity and groundedness while navigating these intense waters. We'll separate the wheat from the chaff, distinguishing between authentic spiritual experiences and potentially unhealthy obsessions. You know that feeling when you just know something, but you can't explain why? It's like trying to describe the taste of water or explain why certain music makes you cry. That's what the twin flame recognition often feels like. A knowing that goes deeper than words can reach. Here's the thing about seeking external validation for your twin flame connection. It's like asking someone else to tell you if you're in love. Sure, they can look at the symptoms, analyze the behavior patterns, check all the boxes on some cosmic checklist. But can they really know what's happening in your heart? In your soul? The journey of recognizing your twin flame is less like following a map and more like learning to trust your internal compass. Some days, that compass might seem to spin wildly, making you question everything. That's normal. In fact, it's part of the process. As one spiritual teacher beautifully put it, the doubt is not a bug in the system, it's a feature. Think about how a tree knows which way to grow. It doesn't need someone to tell it up is that way. It just knows. Your soul has that same innate wisdom. But here's where it gets tricky. We live in a world that has trained us to trust Google more than our gut, to seek external verification for internal truths. The questioning, the uncertainty, the moments of thinking you might be crazy. These are often signs that you're on the right track. Why? Because true twin flame connections shake us to our core. They're meant to challenge everything we think we know about love, about ourselves, about reality itself. It's like being handed a book written in a language you didn't know you could read. At first, you might doubt your ability to understand it. You might ask others to translate it for you. But eventually, you realize that you've known this language all along. It's the language of your soul. The paradox is beautiful, really. The more you seek external validation, the further you get from your truth. It's only when you learn to sit with the uncertainty, to dance with the doubt, that clarity begins to emerge. It's like trying to see your reflection in rushing water. The harder you try to focus, the blurrier it becomes. But when you relax and just allow yourself to look, the image becomes clear. Remember this, your inner knowing isn't something you need to create or find. It's something you need to uncover. It's already there, like a radio signal that's always broadcasting. Your job isn't to make the signal stronger. It's to tune your receiver to the right frequency. And yes, some days you'll feel absolutely certain, and other days you'll wonder if you've made it all up. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. It's your soul's way of making sure you stay humble, stay growing, stay learning. So the next time someone asks you, how do you know? Remember that the truest answer might just be, I just do, and that's enough. Your knowing doesn't need defending, explaining, or proving. Like a flower turning toward the sun, your soul knows its truth. Trust that knowing. Dance with the doubt when it comes. But most importantly, remember that no external validation can match the quiet certainty of your own soul's recognition. Perhaps the real question isn't whether you're crazy, but whether you're finally sane enough to trust what your soul has known all along. Let's talk about that razor-thin line between divine connection and what knowledgeable people call cosmic stalking. You know what I mean, right? That place where following your heart might actually be masking something that needs healing. Sometimes what we label as spiritual connection is actually our wounded inner child crying out for validation. And you know what? That's perfectly okay. We're human beings having a spiritual experience, not the other way around. Our hearts are complex territories where divine love and human need often dance together, sometimes stepping on each other's toes. I remember sitting with a woman who was convinced her twin flame connection was the most spiritual thing she'd ever experienced. I think about him every second, she told me, her eyes bright with what she thought was enlightenment. I can't eat, I can't sleep. Isn't that proof of our divine connection? Oh, honey, let me tell you about the time I was so obsessed with collecting Beanie Babies that I couldn't sleep either. Obsession can wear many masks, even spiritual ones. But here's where it gets interesting. True twin flame connections don't diminish you, they expand you. Think of it like this. When you're standing in genuine sunlight, you don't need to convince yourself you're warm, you just are. The same goes for authentic spiritual connections. They don't need you to constantly prove their existence or sacrifice your well-being to maintain them. You see, the universe has a funny way of teaching us through what we think we want. Sometimes what feels like an obsessive connection to another soul is actually the universe's way of showing us where we need to heal. It's like having a spiritual GPS that's constantly recalculating, trying to redirect you back to yourself. But how do I know the difference? I hear you ask. Well, let me share something I've learned through years of walking this path and occasionally falling flat on my face. Divine connection feels like coming home to yourself, while obsession feels like losing yourself in someone else. One expands your world, the other shrinks it to the size of another person's attention. When you're truly aligned with a divine connection, you don't need to check their social media every 5 minutes. You don't need to interpret every song on the radio as a secret message. You don't need to convince yourself that their new relationship is just part of the journey. Real divine connection gives you peace, not anxiety. It brings clarity, not confusion. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is admit that you're being human. Really human. Messy, complicated, beautiful human. Because here's the truth. Even twin flames need to pay their bills, brush their teeth, and deal with mundane reality. Spirituality isn't about escaping these things. It's about bringing more light to them. Let me share something personal. Before, I was convinced that every white feather I saw was a sign from my twin flame. I had boxes full of feathers. Boxes. Finally, my best friend gently pointed out that I lived near a chicken farm. Sometimes a feather is just a feather, and that's okay too. The beauty of walking this tightrope between divine connection and human attachment is that you don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to do it honestly. Some days you'll lean too far into the spiritual bypass. Other days you'll be drowning in human doubt. The magic happens in finding your balance between these extremes. Remember, true divine connection doesn't ask you to abandon your common sense or your self-respect. It doesn't demand that you put your life on hold or twist yourself into emotional pretzels trying to understand the runner-chaser dynamic. It simply invites you to become more of who you already are. So next time you find yourself wondering if you're experiencing divine connection or human obsession, ask yourself this: does this connection make me more me or less me? Does it expand my world or contract it? Does it bring me peace or chaos? The answers might surprise you, and that's exactly where the growth begins. After all, maybe the real divine connection we're all seeking isn't with someone else at all. Maybe it's with the parts of ourselves we've been too afraid to love. Now there's a plot twist worth considering, isn't it? Let's get real for a minute. Like, really real. You know that moment when you're convinced you've found the one because they ordered the same coffee as you and your birthdays are 3 days apart. I've been there, honey. We've all been there. It's time to have that conversation about the difference between genuine twin flame signs and what I lovingly call spiritual Pinterest syndrome, where everything looks divinely meaningful through the right filter. Here's the raw truth that nobody in the spiritual community wants to admit. Sometimes our hearts are so hungry for connection that they'll turn a hamburger into a holy feast. And you know what? That's perfectly human. But let's dive deeper into what's really happening when we experience these connections. Think about it like this. Have you ever been shopping when you're starving? Suddenly, everything looks amazing, right? Even that questionable gas station sushi starts looking like a 5-star meal. our spiritual hunger can work the same way. When we're craving deep connection, every synchronicity feels like a cosmic billboard with our name on it. But here's where it gets interesting. True twin flame connections aren't about the external signs at all. They're not about seeing 11:11 on the clock. Though, let's be honest, who hasn't gotten excited about that? Or about having the same favorite color as a child? These might be lovely coincidences, but they're like the garnish on the plate. Nice to have, but not the actual meal. I remember one woman who had created an elaborate spreadsheet of twin flame signs she'd experienced with someone. She had documented every shared interest, every similar life experience, every time they'd worn the same color shirt without planning it. The spreadsheet was impressive. I'll give her that. But when I asked her how this connection was helping her grow, she went quiet. That's when the real work began. You see, authentic twin flame connections are less about magical signs and more about magical transformations. They're not about finding someone who likes the same movies as you. They're about finding someone who mirrors back to you both your light and your shadow so clearly that you can't hide from either anymore. It's like having a spiritual spotlight suddenly turned on in all those dark corners of your soul you've been pretending don't exist. Years ago, I was convinced someone was my twin flame because we could finish each other's sentences and had an uncanny way of texting each other at the exact same moment. Impressive, right? But here's what I wasn't paying attention to. I was dimming my light to match their comfort level, shrinking my dreams to fit their fears, and calling it divine timing instead of what it really was. Settling. True twin flame connections don't ask you to become smaller. They demand that you become larger. They're not about comfortable similarities. They're about uncomfortable growth. They're not about finding someone who shares your favorite ice cream flavor. They're about finding someone who reflects your deepest truths back to you, even when, especially when, those truths are uncomfortable. Here's a little exercise I often share with my clients. Instead of looking for signs that someone is your twin flame, look for signs that you're becoming more authentically yourself in their presence. Are you growing? Are you facing your fears? Are you becoming more honest, more compassionate, more alive? These are the real signs we should be paying attention to. And let's talk about that elephant in the spiritual room. The idea that twin flames are meant to be romantic partners. Sometimes the most profound twin flame connection might be with someone you never date, never kiss, never even touch. Because this journey isn't about finding your perfect match. It's about becoming your perfect self. Remember this. The universe doesn't speak in Hollywood rom-com cliches. It speaks in growth opportunities, in challenges that make you stronger, in connections that make you more authentically you. Sometimes these come wrapped in pretty synchronicities, and sometimes they come disguised as heartbreak. Both are equally valid, equally sacred. So the next time you're counting synchronicities or Googling twin flame signs at 3 a.m., we've all been there. Pause and ask yourself, am I looking for signs to validate what I want to be true, or am I open to what is actually true? The answer might not be what you're hoping for, but it will be exactly what you need. Isn't it funny how that works? We spend so much time trying to label our connections, desperately attempting to fit our experiences into neat little spiritual boxes, when the whole point is to break free from these boxes altogether. You know what this reminds me of? It's like being so focused on proving you're a butterfly that you forget to actually fly. We get so caught up in the terminology, the definitions, the labels, that we miss the magnificent transformation happening right under our own wings. And oh, what a transformation it is. Here's the thing about spiritual growth. It's a lot like growing a garden. You can't prove a seed is growing by digging it up every day to check on it. You have to trust the process, water it with patience, and allow it to unfold in its own divine timing. Sometimes, the most spiritual thing you can do is just shut up and grow. But how do I know if I'm growing? I hear you ask. Well, my dear, growth isn't always about feeling good. Sometimes it's about feeling everything, the good, the bad, and the, oh my God, what is happening to me? Because real growth, true spiritual evolution, isn't about becoming more spiritual. It's about becoming more real. Think about it like this. When you're learning to dance, there's a point where you have to stop counting the steps and just feel the music. The same goes for spiritual growth. There's a point where you have to stop counting the signs and just feel the dance of your own evolution. And let me tell you, it's a wild dance indeed. I remember the day I stopped trying to prove my own spiritual experiences to others or even to myself. It was like taking off a heavy backpack I didn't even know I was carrying. Suddenly, everything became lighter, clearer, more authentic. I wasn't a twin flame journeyer anymore. I was just me, experiencing whatever this magnificent, messy life was offering. Known, your growth doesn't need a fancy spiritual label to be valid. Your transformation doesn't need to fit into anyone else's definition of what it should look like. Sometimes the most profound growth happens in the quiet moments when nobody's watching, when you're not trying to document it for your spiritual Instagram feed. You want to know what real spiritual growth looks like? It's when you can laugh at yourself for being human. It's when you can hold both your divine nature and your human messiness in the same loving embrace. It's when you stop trying to prove you're on a twin flame journey and just focus on being the best version of yourself, whether that version fits any spiritual stereotype or not. Let me share something personal. The most significant growth in my life happened when I stopped trying to be spiritual and just started being honest. Honest about my fears, my doubts, my humanity. Because here's the secret they don't tell you in Twin Flame 101. The labels we put on our connections matter far less than the growth these connections inspire. And you know what's really beautiful? When you stop obsessing over whether someone is your twin flame and just focus on your own growth, you often find yourself becoming the person you were seeking all along. It's like that quote from Rumi, "What you seek is seeking you." But maybe, just maybe, what you're really seeking isn't a twin flame at all. It's the person you become while looking for one. So here's my invitation to you. Let go of the need to prove, define, or label your journey. Instead, ask yourself, how am I growing? How am I changing? How am I becoming more authentically myself? Because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. not finding your other half, but becoming whole within yourself. I must say that being spiritually awakened doesn't mean you get to skip doing your laundry. I know, not exactly the mystical wisdom you were hoping for, right? But this is where the rubber meets the road on the twin flame journey, where the cosmic meets the mundane, and where real magic actually happens. You see, there's this beautiful dance we're all trying to master, the art of keeping our head in the clouds while our feet stay firmly planted on the ground. It's like being a cosmic tightrope walker, balancing between the extraordinary and the ordinary, between divine connection and human reality. And let me tell you, it's quite the choreography. I remember a woman who was so caught up in the spiritual aspects of her twin flame connection that she'd practically forgotten how to human. Her bills were piling up, her friendships were dissolving, and her health was suffering, all because she believed that focusing on 3D reality would somehow lower her vibration. Oh, honey, let's talk about how paying your electric bill can be just as spiritual as meditation, shall we? Here's the thing about balance. It's not about dividing yourself between the spiritual and the practical. It's about making the practical spiritual and the spiritual practical. Even the most enlightened monk still needs to eat. The most connected psychic still needs to sleep. Your twin flame journey doesn't exempt you from being human. It actually invites you to be more fully human than ever before. You know what nobody tells you about spiritual awakening? Sometimes it looks like doing your taxes with more awareness. Sometimes it's about bringing mindfulness to your grocery shopping. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is schedule that dentist appointment you've been putting off. Because true spirituality isn't about escaping reality. It's about embracing all of it, even the parts that don't make it onto your vision board. I had my own wake-up call about this years ago. I was so focused on ascending that I was practically floating away from my own life. Then one day, my very wise mentor asked me, "If you're so connected to the divine, why can't you keep your house clean?" Ouch. Talk about a spiritual smackdown. But she was right. What good is all this cosmic connection if we can't manifest it in our daily lives? Here's a truth. Being grounded doesn't mean you're less spiritual. In fact, it might mean you're more spiritual because you're bringing that light down into the physical realm where it's needed most. It's like being a cosmic electrician. You need to be grounded to safely conduct that powerful energy. When you start treating your everyday life as part of your spiritual practice, something magical happens. That divine connection you've been seeking, it shows up in the most unexpected places. In the way you handle conflict at work, in how you talk to the cashier at the grocery store, in the patience you show during traffic jams. Remember this: your twin flame journey isn't about ascending out of your human experience. It's about bringing more light into it. It's about being so grounded in your truth that you can hold space for both the mystical and the mundane. It's about making peace with the fact that sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is take out the trash with presence and grace. Think of yourself as a tree. Your branches might reach for the heavens, but it's your roots that allow you to grow tall. The deeper your roots go into reality, the higher your consciousness can soar. That's not just pretty poetry, it's practical spirituality. So next time you find yourself getting lost in the cosmic aspects of your twin flame journey, remember this: the earth is just as sacred as the stars. Your human experience is just as valuable as your spiritual awakening. And sometimes, the most profound spiritual practice is simply showing up fully for your own life. Messy, mundane, and magnificently real as it is. After all, maybe the real miracle isn't in seeing angels or having mystical experiences. Maybe it's in bringing that divine light into your everyday life, one load of laundry at a time. Now that's what I call practical magic. You know what? At the end of the day, whether he's your twin flame or not isn't really the make or break question you might think it is. Many people get caught up in the label, desperately seeking validation, that they miss the whole point of what these intense connections are meant to teach us. If you're asking yourself, am I crazy? You're probably more sane than you give yourself credit for. The very fact that you're questioning and seeking to understand shows a level of self-awareness that's actually pretty healthy. The crazy ones are usually those who never question themselves at all. What matters most isn't the label we put on the connection, but what we do with it. These intense relationships, whether they're twin flames, soulmates, or simply profound connections, come into our lives as teachers. They're mirrors showing us where we need to grow, what we need to heal, and how we can become better versions of ourselves. Those who focus less on proving their connection is a twin flame and more on their personal growth journey tend to find the most peace and fulfillment. So focus on your own growth and healing. Trust that clarity will come in its own time. Keep your feet firmly planted in reality while your heart explores the possibilities. And remember that no label can make or break the authenticity of what you feel. At the end of the day, love, in all its forms, should bring more light into your life, not more confusion and pain. If you're feeling lost, take a step back. Ground yourself in your own truth. The answers you're seeking often come when you stop looking so hard for them. And hey, maybe you're not crazy at all. Maybe you're just awakening to deeper levels of connection than you've experienced before. That's not insanity, that's growth. Trust the process, but keep your common sense close at hand. Your heart knows the truth, even if your mind is still catching up.